Welcome back to The Line. This week, the Albuquerque Journal reported that New Mexico saw the largest decline in higher education enrollment in the nation over the past year. Enrollment declined 8.3% here in New Mexico, and the national average was less than 2%. That's a big old gap. Two reasons cited in the story include economic improvement. That means people can get a job and not necessarily go back to school. And more importantly, Antoinette Cedillo-Lopez, that we're having population loss. And the amount of population loss includes a lot of young people or people college age. What's the upshot here with lower enrollment?
The population loss was under 2,000. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to disaggregate that and see who is actually leaving. Who are these people leaving?
Right.
And if they're college students, that's really interesting because it raises implications for all of our higher ed institutions to see why. They also need, the other thing though is there was a dropout. From one semester to the other, and I think it's important for the institutions to see why. In the past, people have dropped out because they can't even get the courses that they need to graduate. And so I think there's an important role for each of the universities to really look at what's going on with their programs.
What was interesting to me, Rob, reading this report was we're at 8.3, the nation's at 1.9. Between us and second place was like 5.5. I think Oklahoma. That's still a big gap. That 3.5%. It's a big gap there.
Yeah,
interesting.
I don't know. I took a look at this, and you don't want to be number one in a poll like this or a study like this. But on the other hand, though, and I've said this before at this table, I think that we as a nation have gone overboard on four-year college degrees.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of people who, especially in New Mexico, who aren't that interested in getting four-year college degrees, and they end up getting a lot of debt. And tuitions keep going up. So I'm the outlier here, but I look at the study and the fact that 41 other states saw a decline.
Thank you.
It might be telling me that people are starting to say the cost benefit isn't that great. Now, if you want to become a
lawyer
or an engineer, brain surgeon, certainly you want that. But for a lot of people, I wrote a story, I'm going to toot my own horn here. I wrote a story a couple weeks ago on watchdog.org about how the petrochemical industry in the United States, especially in the Gulf Coast area, they're hiring people starting at $60,000 a year for who have two-year degrees or just certificates. I think that sends a message that if you're a dedicated student and you really need, and if you want to get to that goal, that's fine. If you want to go to graduate school, postgraduate school, but I think for a lot of people that's not the right option for them.
Which means the colleges and universities have to really examine their programs. What are they preparing people to do?
Right, and in New Mexico, the average, according to the last study I saw, the average UNM student graduates in 6 years. I mean, that means let's say you spend 5 years there and you drop out. I mean, that's still, you've got a lot of debt.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. In fact, since you have two masters, I appreciate your understanding that, for a lot of folks, it's just not the route.
And that story I wrote, maybe it's not that indicative, but that story I wrote got 6.5 thousand Facebook likes across the country. I think there are a lot of people out there who are thinking, am I really getting the bang for my buck? Or my kid is.
There you go. Well, Daniel, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
you got college-age kids. You got,
I do. I got one that's left the state. I think there's a larger question. I think Rob's onto something, and that is, during this time we had a spike in oil and gas prices, which means they're out looking for people to work. And do you want to go to college and take on all this debt when you can go make $27 an hour to start, right out the chutes, driving a truck, working? I mean, I would drive down to Hobbs to referee basketball, and there was trucking organizations that said, $5,000 signing bonus if you got a CDL. So I think that's one of the situations. The other situation is, I think she's right. I think that the universities have lost focus on who their client is. They keep thinking everybody wants to go be, an archaeologist or an anthropologist. And I think a lot of people out there want to go get a job. And they want to get usable, they want to get transferable skills that they can go out and earn a living with. They're coming out of school, and I think it's hard right now. Kids are seeing, because this generation is seeing, the generation going into college now is seeing older brothers and sisters. Some are even seeing parents that have a master's degree, that are out of work, that are working at Home Depot, that are doing other things. And they're saying, why do I want to go do this when if I would have just started at Home Depot out of high school, I'd be my dad's boss today. And so I think this is indicative of one, the spike of oil and gas. Two, I think that our schools have lost lost focus. And 3, most importantly, we have to revamp our junior college system in New Mexico. This is, and the university system, it is a disgrace that you can enroll at Eastern New Mexico University or UNM and transfer from one to the other, and half your classes aren't accepted. Right. Or that you can go to a junior college at Hobbs, and those classes without a degree won't be accepted at one of our 4-year universities. This system is broken, and I think you're finally hearing from the people that speak the loudest. The pocketbook with the students needs to be fixed.
Because to finish your story there, Laura Sanchez-Reve, is the debt issue. You know what I mean? People are looking at 5 figures of debt all over the place. Kids are not stupid. Kids are looking at, I don't want this. I don't need 5 figures of, I don't need $70,000 in debt for the next decade of my life. I mean, can you blame anybody for this decision?
I cannot. I've got 6 figures still, and I'm 11 years out of law school. So it's not pretty to have that, and we don't have that level of salaries here.
That's right.
And so you really can't, the future is not bright when you have that kind of debt. And
so what does that mean for the overall picture of New Mexico? Antoinette made up a good point, and so did Rob, that perhaps we needed to look at another way of educating kids here to bend towards what the wind's showing us here. There's other ways to make a living here.
Well, I do think that there needs to be, I agree with Antoinette as far as the schools needing to really look at their programs and figure out, what they're preparing students to do. Not everybody's going to be a college professor. Not everybody's going to go, be a, whatever PhD, need a PhD for something. There are people who will, and I think those institutions are there for that. But we need to figure out a lot more of the 2-year programs or shorter, the certification type programs.
Let me add in, CNM is also showing a drop locally.
And I saw that, Kathy Winograd, who's the president of that organization, of CNM, saying that was a real disappointment. And part of my concern when I hear that from administrators is they're reflecting, they're seeing their institution as a business. That a drop in enrollment means a drop in their overall budget, and that's problematic. But if you, for me, you always see when the economy is really bad, people go back to school for retooling, retraining. They don't have anything else going on. When the economy starts to improve, you see a drop in that. I hope that this signals that we're improving, and that means that the institutions need to reflect that reality and start to retool themselves.
This is part of Antoinette Cedillo-Lopez, part of obviously a bigger discussion about economic development. Where do we place our bets? What's the horse we're going to, go with in the future? We've had a lot of tries here with silicon chips, all kinds of different things over the years that are going to be the next big thing.
Right.
And then CNM quite brilliantly can tilt towards that and design degree programs 2 years to go after that. But if we don't have one that sticks outside of oil and gas, it seems to me it's problematic for kids to decide what they want to do in the first place if they want to stay here in New Mexico. What is the rising industry? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the film industry is looking good. I would like to see a more robust sort of local economy in all sectors. I think that's something we need to, entrepreneurs, I think, are really important to train. But the whole thing, when we talk about the data, I'm also really interested in who's leaving.
Yes.
And who's graduating. And, when I was thinking about the enrollment, I started thinking, well, are those Latinos?
Gotcha.
Are those, who's dropping? Who's stopping? Who's not going? And that was not so apparent. And I'd be interested in following up on that.
Crack into that a little bit. That's an interesting point. Rob, it's funny. I was listening to you just a second ago talking about the need for a degree or not. I'm thinking about even our business in journalism.
Yeah.
It used to be standard to go to a 4-year journalism degree school.
I totally agree.
Now you just put up a blog and call yourself a journalist and you're good to go.
And some people are pretty good at it.
That's right.
I've always, and I've got a master's degree in journalism, but I've always thought that that journalism is more of a trade than it is a profession.
That's right.
And if you know how to write clearly and compellingly, or if you're in television, if you can present yourself in a logical sort of way.
That's right.
I don't see why. I've just never been a big journalism with a capital J type guy.
Yeah, exactly right. Up next, a local attorney talks about her client who has been detained in Guantanamo Bay for over a decade.